Perfect. Okay. So thank you for joining us on your summer break. Your last, couple of weeks. We know that that is precious, precious time for teachers, but I will be presenting on increasing student engagement today. My name is Shanna Klassen, and I'm the project manager of health and physical education. Today is my 6th day work anniversary. So I've been here at the State Department for 6 years. Time flies when you're having fun. And before coming to OSDE, I was a teacher for 19 years. So I've taught pre-K through 8th grade. So I know I had asked a few of you to go ahead and tell your name, your school, and your role in the chat, and maybe throw in an interesting fact about yourself so we can see where you're from. If you haven't had a chance to do that, we'd love to see who all is joining us. Christy, did we have any additional folks jump on?
We have some new folks on, but we've got someone. Oh, she doesn't say where she's from, but oh, there we go. Dustin Public Schools.
Ooh.
Graham Dustin. Yeah.
Okay, Graham. So it's maybe around Ardmore, maybe north of Ardmore, maybe west. I may need to sharpen up my geography skills.
South of Henrietta.
Ooh, okay. So I was way off. All right. So today's session is our goals are to develop an understanding of how to increase student engagement by incorporating trigonometry, calculus, algorithms into the elementary school setting. So when I was approached to talk about student engagement as a PE teacher, I thought, how can I raise the bar for student engagement? So I thought incorporating trigonometry, calculus, and algorithms might be something that you all haven't, had a lot of experience with. So everybody buckle in for some math and algorithms. Doesn't that sound fun? Rory, no? All right, so I want you all to think about, how did you feel when you thought today's focus was incorporating trigonometry, calculus, and algorithms? How did that make you feel? And then in the chat, or you can come off of your of mute and think about what is, and we can discuss what is the correlation between how you felt when you thought it was we were learning about trigonometry and calculus and algorithms, and how some students feel about school. What can we do to help those students who might feel a little bit of stress or anxiety coming to school? I don't know, maybe you didn't feel stress when you read trigonometry and calculus and algorithms. I know I would have.
Are you able to see the comments, or would you like me to share them?
Yeah, go ahead and share those with me.
Well, somebody would be sick to their stomach, nervous. Someone went, oh my, and not very interested.
Okay, so what's the correlation between how you felt when you first read those goals and how some of our students feel about school? Some of those same reactions. Our students probably have some of those same reactions. Their stomach might be in knots. They might feel nervous, not very interested, right? So what can we do to help those students? So that's what we'll be talking about today. What can we do to help those students who don't feel comfortable coming to school, or maybe learning about math, or learning about reading, or maybe even physical education? Because, just because I like to move and exercise and play doesn't mean all students. So how can we meet them where they are? All right, so our real goals today are to develop an understanding of how to increase student engagement in the classroom by addressing perceived competence, skill development, and relationship building. So I always like a good quote. So when we talk about perceived competence, Henry Ford quote seems appropriate. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I like that quote to start off this section. So perceived competence How do you know if your students are experiencing success? Maybe add to the chat. How do you know that your students are experiencing success? Or how do you know what is challenging to them? And the last question, can success be overcoming a challenge? So just pause right there for us to kind of think through those questions. Christy, do you see any thoughts in the chat?
None yet. Okay, well, their self-confidence, we've got that. And
Mhm.
they ask questions or say it's too hard. And
Okay.
also just by their reactions and their body movements.
Yeah, body language is a really great visual of, whether they are shutting down or they're feeling overwhelmed. I love that. Any other thoughts from Rory, Yvonne, Christy?
Roy put in observation, formative assessments are seeing them find joy in something they previously disliked.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else added in how they react. And if you work at developing relationships with your students, you learn to recognize signs and hopefully they'll feel comfortable sharing their feelings with you.
Yeah, right. Or those light bulb moments when their eyes light up and have a little sparkle to them and like, oh, I get it now, right? So all of those things are how teachers see if our students are experiencing success. So how we define success is important. In physical education, I often like to think through that our students aren't competing all the time against another student. Their skill is, wherever they are, we're going to move them forward. So a lot of times, if we're talking about fitness with push-ups or curl ups and things like that, we're just trying to improve whatever you got from the first test. You're just trying to improve that, and it's just one of those areas of opportunities to kind of push yourself forward. So providing a sense of accomplishment and skill improvement doesn't always necessarily mean skill level, right? So we're meeting our students where they are and moving them forward on an individual basis. All right, so I love this flow or enjoyment channel. I saw this graphic and I just thought it was really cool. So how students view success is formed by what three things? It is past experiences, competence, and perceived ability. So over on the left side, you'll see at the bottom, it says low and then challenge with the arrow up. So if the challenge is too high and their skill is low, they're going to feel what? They're going to feel anxiety, right? But if their skill is high and the challenge is low, then they're going to be bored. So we have to find that sweet spot right in the flow channel where we're challenging them enough where it's moving them forward and they're not becoming anxious and they're not becoming bored, because that's when they become disengaged, right? So we're going to focus on a climate of mutual respect. Teachers do this all the time, and especially at the first of the year, building that community, classroom community. And so what strategies do you use to ensure that students don't feel singled out or left out? Well, in physical education, a lot of times we pair them up and we make groups and teams, and that can be randomly with popsicle sticks, Uno cards, group them by colors, by numbers. We can play music and have them go knee to knee, back to back. We can number them off, and they in physical education, at least, when I say get in a group of 4, they always go to their friends, right? Their group of friends. And then I number them off 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1's go to this corner, 2's go to this corner, 3 goes to this corner, and 4's go to this corner. So it kind of disperses them into groups maybe that they're not always with, or they're not with their best friends. Another thing that we do in physical education is called Team Shake app. And so I can make teams based on their class numbers. And so it was just randomly, it just puts them in teams. And you can even on this Team Shake app, you can say, okay, number 6 and number 9 don't need to be in the same team. Maybe they have a personality conflict, so it always keeps them separated. So those are just ways to ensure that students aren't feeling singled out and they're, or left out by just, go pick a partner or get in a group of 3. They may feel left out. So another thing that we focus on is skill development so that they can stay engaged. We want that sweet spot, right? So I'm always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it. And that was by Pablo Picasso. There's your arts tie-in, Liz, with Picasso. All right, so focus on the process. So a lot of times our skills need to start easily and work into the more difficult ones. And so our Oklahoma academic standards for any of our subject areas are already vertically and horizontally aligned for progression. And so if you want to go to our website, you can just take a picture of this QR code. And you can come back and just click on it if you have an iPhone, and it can pull up our website with all of the academic standards for Oklahoma with all of the different subject matters. And then you can kind of explore and see how those standards and objectives are vertically aligned, and those skills build on each other, starting from easy and go to more difficult. So that you can put in your back pocket for now. We won't have you go and look at those or dig into those right now, but they are there for you to help with that progression. So skill development and progression is really, really important to build competence and confidence. And so in physical education, we don't just go right into the harder skills in elementary school, like using a racket or a paddle, because using an implement is more difficult than just using their hands. And so we have to kind of build those skills out before we get to the more difficult task or skills. We in PE break down our skills into small chunks. We call those cues. So if I was teaching underhand throw, we would say point, step, turn, follow through, or swing and follow through. So we just break that down, and because a lot of our students in those younger ages are kind of working through those movements until it becomes more natural to them. They're talking themselves through that process. And so a lot of times in physical education, after we teach those cues, then we demonstrate that and we model it for our students. And then we practice together. We may even have a student demonstrator, because when our students see someone their age and their ability doing it, then they feel more competent and confident in trying that skill as well. And then we move on when students are comfortable with that skill after giving them plenty of practice with repetition and then also feedback. And I know you all do the same in the classroom. So here are, good pedagogy. This is things that we do in physical education, but I think it applies to all classrooms. When we're providing choice and modifications, when we provide autonomy and choice, it helps our students engage in the activity because they have some choice or decision making. So I always like to give either 2 options of the activity at a station or multiple pieces of equipment, so that they can see where based on their skill. If let's say a wiffle ball is too hard, then they could use a bean bag or even a scarf to make it slow the movement down so that they can be more successful. So modifying the skills and activities so that they can be successful is important, and finding optimal challenges for every student, right? So I may have students who have low motor skills, and then I have students who are really gifted with their motor skills. So how can we address all students from, highly skilled to lower skilled, giving them options and those choice and autonomy. So transitions and time on task. Why are transitions and time on task important? Or are they? Any thoughts from anyone? Why are transitions and time on task important?
It says that's when so much instructional time is wasted.
Mhm.
Sanders says in SPED, it's very important.
Mhm. Yeah, time on task. Well, we were talking about, that repetition and practice and feedback. If we have, too much time wasted on behavior or transitions, then we're, losing that instructional time. So making sure that your students know the procedures, and we have procedures for, going to the bathroom or getting equipment, putting the equipment away, lining up, rotating from station to station. And those are a few that just in physical education that we had. So I know that you all in the classroom have procedures for everything, pencils, sharpening pencils, cleaning up and all of those things. So time on task is really important. So
We
that
also have that transitions
Mhm,
are an opportunity to move or talk, and it
mhm.
keeps it, but you keep it short. And then transitions and time is time that we often lose student attention.
Right. So yeah, building in those physical activity breaks into the transitions. So it's kind of that change of state where they can their brain kind of resets and is ready, gets them ready for the next activity or the next learning activity. Great. That's perfect. So we have some great resources for you all. They're called the framework projects. And so this, again, QR code and bit.ly address will lead you to our page of frameworks. And so for ELA and literacy, it has progressions. In math, they have sample unit progressions. In science, they have those sample unit progressions as well. In social studies, they have learning progressions. And for health education, we have an implementation plan that builds skill on skill that leads students to health literacy. So these are a great roadmap in showing how we can progress our students from easy to more difficult skills. So check this out, especially later after we wrap up our lunch and learn. All right, so talking about skill development and feedback, we have to be specific when we are talking about feedback, not just general, like, oh, good job. We want to be very specific so that the students can, uh, maybe hear that feedback and then try to change that behavior. Or for instance, in PE, I like how you stepped with your opposite foot, because a lot of our students in early childhood, they step with the same foot as they're throwing. And so that is, not the proper throwing form. So being specific or giving them a little clip on their toe to help them remind them of which foot to step with. So I'm sure that in the classroom, you all can model, but also give them that specific feedback so that they can grow in that skill. So lastly, and I think we addressed that earlier in the chat, is the relationship building part. When we see and we know our students, we can see that they're attaining that skill and moving forward. And just like Theodore Roosevelt said, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I love that quote. So when we talk about student relationships, there are three different types of relationships. There's teacher to student connection. So that starts with classroom management and developing procedures. Our younger students love to know what's coming next. And so when we have those, really focus and spend time on developing procedures and classroom management, it helps them feel safe and comfortable. So in my classroom, we had a board outside of our class that had student responsibilities, but it also had what we were doing that day, because in PE, they all want to know, what are we doing today? What are we doing today? Well, look at the board. here's the warm up. We're doing team tag traveling. I want you to go to the partner and get a partner and go to the perimeter. So that already tells them exactly how to go and set up. And we're going to be playing cone ball today. So they walk past me. They know what we're doing. They go to their spots, partner and a perimeter, and we can get started right away. So that's a teacher to student connection by just providing those procedures from the get-go. And so they know exactly what you expect of them. Making connections, getting to know your students, with activities, greet them at the door. There's an activity that I played called On a Scale of 1 to 3. And so I could have cones out and say, if you like vegetables or you like riding your bike, 3 being a lot, 1 being a little, and then your students can show you, what they like. And that's a fun way to get to know them with an activity like that, going to different areas of the room. You can also making connection is just teacher enthusiasm. One of my students said, "Oh, Miss Clausen, I think I want to be a PE teacher." And I felt like, you know what, if I'm, I'm doing my job. If one of my students says that they want to do my job because I'm enthusiastic and having fun. And always be consistent with your expectations. This is really important in developing that student-teacher relationship. So self-management, I use the zones of regulation in my classroom, and I would teach my students that the different emotions related to blue zone, like maybe they're tired, they're exhausted. If they're in the green zone, they're feeling good, they're content, they're ready to learn. If they were in the yellow zone, they might be excited or scared, or maybe a little worried. If they were in the red zone, they were upset, angry, aggressive. And then it provided some tools. What did they need to do if they were feeling that way? They could go take a break, ask for a hug if they were in the blue zone. If they're in the red zone, maybe they need to take a break. And so they would go over they would come and tell me, oh, I'm in the red zone. And so I could help them if they needed, or they could, kind of address how they're feeling and then know they need to go to the calm space if they're feeling angry or in the red zone. So that kind of helps them cope with how they're feeling and gives them the tools of what to do when they are feeling that way. Student to student connections, focus on the skill of cooperation. In my class, we always did that at the first of the year. So it kind of set the tone for how we treat one another respectfully and we participate in activities safely, so that we kind of just establish those ground rules of teamwork and cooperation through different types of cooperation activities. We also would play get to know you games so students could develop those relationships. We could play a help me game where we just established that it's okay if you need help. Whether you're feeling angry or upset or you need help with a skill, it's okay to ask for help. Also, student to activity, it's really important that students feel a personal relevance, so that they will engage in that activity. And so maybe if a student really likes, certain things, maybe you could incorporate snakes or whatever into the assignment, whatever they find personally relevant and intriguing. Snakes would not be mine, but some students, they definitely get excited about that. And so they want to read a book about that. Well, then make their interest work for you. And let them create and be part of that process. Give them a little bit of democratic practice, right? So let's reflect on our goals today. Did we develop an understanding of how to increase student engagement in the classroom by addressing perceived competence, skill development, and relationship building? Any questions? Here are some resources if you're interested in the flow chart or where I got this information to build out the slide deck. And here is my contact information and the presentation link. So if you want to take a picture of that and refer back to any of this or share it with others, you can just give them that bit.ly address. So I will stop sharing. And then if anyone has questions, comments, concerns, we can have a little time to talk through that. You're welcome, Sandra. Thank you. Now, Christy, some said they pair lows with highs. Are those things that you used in your classroom, or what are some other techniques that maybe you used, Rory
If I
or
was,
Yvonne?
and y'all can speak to this as well, but I liked my highest, I would break mine into 4 levels, and I would put so my lowest and my highest, and then I had my mid-high and my mid-low. So I would pair my highest with my mid-low and my mid-highest with my lowest. So I did that sometimes to so that, because the high kids sometimes get tired of always helping the lowest kids, and so, they'll get frustrated. So sometimes they need to have a variance in that. So others might have ideas to share.
I also had that experience, Christy, where I had a high and a low paired together in our action-based learning lab. And my high student got frustrated with the lower student because she didn't respond quick enough and she had a meltdown. So I also have had that. So, and that might have been just that, pairing.
And sometimes
right?
I put it just depended on the activity. Sometimes I let the
Mhm.
highs together because they could jump off and do some big things and then mix up the other groups. So it just kind of depends on what we're doing.
Mhm.
So, and we also did the Uno cards and the sticks and the I called them music. We'd play a song, and whoever you're standing closest to with your right elbow, that's your partner. All those kinds of things to pair up.
Some of my lows started to just depend on the answers from a high and do nothing. Right? Yeah, that's a good point. When I was getting ready for this presentation, I went to Christy and had a conversation and talked through my slides with her because it was intended for PE teachers. And so I said, "What do you think about this and that?" And she was like, "This is exactly what I do in my class." And so thank you, Christy, for that feedback, because a lot of times we think that PE instruction or fine arts instruction looks way different than instruction in the classroom. And so it was just nice to hear that it's good pedagogy no matter where you are, what setting you're in, has a lot of commonalities, and we can learn from one another. So thank you for that, Christy. Elizabeth, you want to speak to your post?
Yeah, well, this was in a music class, so it was performance, and the kids would see the product. It wasn't just turning it in. So if all the highs were together, everyone who took private piano, then all the other kids in the room checked out. They're like, nope, done. They did an amazing thing. They did it in 10 minutes. So I figured out real fast that I needed to make sure I had a group, and I would combine. So I'd have a low, a little bit higher than low, mid-level, and a high. So the high person in the group often took the lead, but everybody also had an assigned job, and they had to take their assigned job and do that. So if the lead decided to be the writer of the music, they couldn't lead the group. They couldn't, so give everyone jobs and tried to distribute it equally so everyone had a chance.
Uh-huh. And we do that in PE as well, is where we assign each person in the group a job, equipment manager or, task manager or encourager. And that I think that does help with engagement. So everyone knows their job. Okay. Well,
And make my lows the leaders because they
Oh.
rarely get to be a leader. And it would help develop their confidence a little bit to be the leader of a group. And a lot of times that high kid in the group would assist them in knowing what to do next. But I found that to be very powerful for those kids who often get pushed down to be the garbage collector in the group, and this was their opportunity to lead.
very good. Love that. Okay, well, thank you for joining us in your last couple of weeks and enjoy your freedom for the next couple of days and have a wonderful school year. Reach out to us if you need us.